Welcome to the Gaming Trend Podcast, the official podcast of GamingTrend.com. My name is Anthony Shelton, and I am joined by David Burdett.
Hello there.
You got to meet me at my level, like, hello there, when I'm over here, like, doing stadium announcements. David Burdett. Hello there. And Noah Rigsby.
Hi, I for a split second thought about trying to peek my microphone, but I didn't. I backed up the last second.
Glad you saved our ears.
Yeah.
In this podcast, we talk about the latest games we can get our hands on. We talk about the games in our backlog we should have played a long time ago, and games you absolutely need to play. We also squeeze in news. This week, Destiny 2 Lightfall dropped, so we'll give our initial impressions on that. I will give you my final thoughts on Hi-Fi Rush since I finished it, and David has solid impressions on the Call of Duty Warfare 2 Season 2. We'll also get a few news stories in as well.
And a little bit of PSVR 2 if we have some time.
Oh, sneaking stuff in there. I didn't know about that. All right, I like it. Well, let's get started with Call of Duty. David, take it away.
Yes, so we have jumped into Season 2 of Call of Duty. The last time we talked about some of the impressions, I had been able to play like a night of Call of Duty. So I did not have a lot of just feel for everything. So jumping into this one, the new maps, they just suck. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. Like, Museum is not bad, but it is not good. It is a very high sight, like the sight lines are just so long on it, and it isn't the worst map. It does have some good flanking routes and whatnot, and maybe if they could get it into some different rotations, it would be better. But just playing the thing on Team Deathmatch is just not very fun if you're using an SMG. It feels like I should probably run a different gun when you play that map, or I should level up a sniper or something like that. We've played a little bit of it on Search, and it can be fun, but it's another one of those where people just half the time just hit one bomb site because you can just rush it. So it just gets frustrating, and then the spawns, like for instance on Domination, it is very much if you get the right setup, you're spawning people way out the back. Like they even have a hard time getting to the point closest to them. You can spawn them out that way because the point is actually visible from mid-map for A. So it's like, yes, can you cap the point? Sure, but I can also pop you as you're trying to get out of said point. So it's just one of those things where it's rough with the way it's set up. And I mean, I actually said it in our impressions of it. It can take you feels like a whole minute to get a good flank route in. So if I'm playing something like Domination and we are getting smoked and I want to make that play, I mean, it's going to take me a minute just to get around to the other side of spawns to kill a couple guys, get things changed around. So it just doesn't work. Dome is another map that just absolutely stinks. It is a remake of Dome from Modern Warfare 3, but even worse, as we talked about before, it's not just a remake of Modern Warfare 3, it also was in Vanguard last year. So it's even more annoying because we've already gotten this as a remake. So I'm just very confused as to why it's even in the game, beyond the fact of they pulled it from Warzone because it was easy. And Noah and I can tell you about pulling things from Warzone because we decided to try out the battle maps so that we could see what was going on. And boy, these are literally, let's wall off these areas from Warzone and let y'all go at it. It's literally, you can see the assets in the distance of the map that have not loaded.
That's fascinating.
on these big scale maps. And it's frustrating to see this, especially when it's like, you've got other locales that people want to see as regular maps. Like, if you're going to do this, give us high rise. If you're going to do this, give us terminal. Like, there are ways that you can make people happy And I don't mean to sound awful about it, but and still be able to copy paste and take advantage of that. So yeah, it's a bit the maps are a bit of a sore spot. We are still getting that last one in season 2 Reloaded, the reloaded portion of it, but I think it's a little too late. So we'll see if this map is any good. I actually saw one spot, and it might be on Ashika. So I'm gonna have to drop down into that area and see if it's there. Speaking of Ashika, we talked a lot about that on the last podcast dealing with Call of Duty, and Ashika is, at least in my opinion, it's the best part of season 2 that they dropped. The running around in Resurgence for Warzone and everything is just a ton of fun. The map is very, there's not a lot of open spaces. Like you get on Al Mazrah, you're gonna have you're gonna have open spaces, which I'll give them credit for designing Al Mazrah. There's not a lot of spaces on that map where you just feel completely. I don't want to use. I'm trying to think of the right word to use for it. I want to say like naked. You feel like you're running out, like you're just you're just completely in the open. Al Mazrah doesn't have a lot of spots where you just feel completely in the open. Like there's the sand dunes and stuff like that, but they feel balanced enough in that sense that you can still be okay. Even if you're running around the dunes, you can hide. And on Ashika, it's just, you are not going to have a spot that you can't figure out a way to take advantage of cover and stuff. And I like that because I feel like you're not just using the map as an advantage on Ashika. Like all the movement, people were complaining about how, people just gonna play positions and play tactically. It feels like on Ashika, especially with Resurgence and people being able to respawn, that it just becomes okay, these people, you can just kind of rush at people now because I can respawn in 10 seconds if it don't work. So it's just really cool to see that they have they've not brought back movement in the sense of like people slide canceling all over the place, but it definitely feels like we've gotten more the ability to rush people a little bit more. So I'm enjoying that, and I think that's really, really cool that they've done that. The best thing about Call of Duty so far in this update, because I'm not the biggest fan of the weapons. I think the ISO's cool. I don't get why they keep throwing these guns into the AR category. It's an SMG. It was an SMG in Modern Warfare 2019. I don't get why it's an AR.
Is it one of those situations where it starts off as an AR and then you can, mod the kit into an SMG?
It's the sense of like, it's in the AR category. They never leave the category. So for instance, I can set up like one of the battle rifles. Those are all single shot or automatic. I actually took the FTAC, and the way I leveled it up was I pretty much made it into an MP5. All I did was, the only thing I was missing was I did not have a large magazine, obviously, because it's a battle rifle. It's not supposed to. But I was able to take advantage of it having a little higher damage because of that. You can kind of mess around with these things as much as you want, but they never leave the actual classification of what they are, which that's kind of how it's been just forever. It's more the weirdness that we've had several of these guns in the last 4 games that have been in different categories, and especially when you've got Modern Warfare 2019, which had the ISO in it as an SMG, and now it's in Modern Warfare 2 as an assault rifle. It's just kind of odd. It feels like it's almost they're just throwing it in to throw it in to a degree. I couldn't tell you for sure. That's just how it feels to me. That being said, it is a very fast AR still, so you can kind of use it as an SMG to a degree. So that's what ends up happening a lot. I know for me is I'm able to use it as kind of this flex run and gun. And then the shotgun that they added in is the KV broadside. It takes too many shots. Like some of these guns are very one shot oriented with the right attachments. This one, even if you've got a good amount of attachments on it, you have to be point blank killing people with it to get that kind of a kill. Otherwise, it's like I could be from here to like, I don't want to say what's on the screen that like that close is definitely going to kill somebody, but like where like it felt like sometimes I was having to get 3 shots on somebody to kill him with a shotgun from pretty short range. So it's just not very good. The video that is on the screen for all of you watching, this is actually some gameplay from ranked play, and ranked play is one of the. I know Noah will complain about the SBBM in this game and the way that it matches you up with people, and he has a reason for that. That being said, the mode itself, one of the best things in Call of Duty. I love ranked play. I love that they are. To me, the biggest thing with it is you've got the Call of Duty rule set. So with the rule set from the pros, you're banning a lot of these guns, these things that get annoying. Like there's nothing more annoying than a guy sitting up in a campy spot with a light machine gun with 100 bullet clip, and he's just emptying it. Like it's just frustrating. What was even more frustrating was last game, we actually had perks in the last game that were like would literally reveal you, like almost put like in Vanguard, you could actually see people. full on see people if you just shot close to them. And yeah, so you would have search and destroy games where a dude would go to a power position and just spray in the general direction, just hoping to get it. That was very frustrating. When you have something like ranked, you know that does not exist, and that's one of the things that's cool. And a lot of times you have guns that are available, but they're never used because you're just at a disadvantage if you're not running pro loadouts. So I will say with ranked, you do need to make sure that if you're going to play any of it, you need to do some research. There are tons of awesome people out there that have great loadouts. Some of the different pro players like Atlanta FaZe Simp, he posts his loadouts all the time. You have people like Attach from Minnesota Rocker, Atlanta FaZe's own coach, Crowder. He actually does videos talking about like what's the best thing to use. And then you've got guys like Exclusive Ace who do lots of different gun videos and whatnot. And it's just, you have such a wealth of resources to get good at ranked that it's really, really cool that it's even possible. One thing I will tell people, solo queuing, I wish you good luck because you're probably going to run up against 4 stacks or hackers. Because unfortunately, there are hackers in this game. What's funny is there are hackers in this game, and there are pros that are playing right now who have actually just put a whipping on them. So just know that if you play things right, even hackers aren't going to be able to beat you. I doubt that's the case for somebody like me because I am not nearly good enough to play this game and beat hackers. But I've just had a lot of fun. I love playing the 3 game modes: hardpoint, control, search and destroy. Like just the competitive nature of it lends itself to the way I like to play games, and I'm just having fun. Like it feels. There's a competitive feeling when you play search and destroy regularly, and it's just, I don't know what it is, but when you play it in ranked, it elevates it. And I think some of it is just the fact it goes from, it's not just that you're risking your SR rating. Obviously, you're risking that number as to if you're going to get it higher or drop down. But it's also the fact that, unlike something like, for instance, Overwatch, where it's always the same number of players, and Call of Duty, you go from 6v6 to 4v4. So suddenly the entire battlefield changes from what you've been playing in pubs, and you're down 2 players. So suddenly a lane that you weren't thinking about, let's say I'm playing like one of the map that we were just watching, Asilo, like you can on 6v6, you can get people up in some of these different power positions, but also run mid map. When you're running 4v4, you got to really commit to a site because you have no idea where they're defending. So you actually are. I know for me, we have like on that map, for instance, we have a very specific play. If we spawn in on offense, it's a quick A hit out the gate. The reason being is because honestly, the reason is it's the closest site. I can run and plant the bomb fast, and because most of us are on PS5s, we figure maybe the other team hasn't spawned in yet. Because we've won entire rounds because bro's playing on a PS4 and he didn't
Yeah.
spawn in until the second round. So you take a chance sometimes and play it. But we've also learned on that map that if we're playing against these guys who are just rushers, who are just running into the site and trying to fry you, we'll run to the outside. We'll like, okay, let's change this. Let's switch over to our ARs. We're going to run over to the outside bomb area at B and plant there and make them come to us. Because if they're not thinking about it, they've got, if they've got a submachine gun and we're up in power positions with ARs, they're just not going to be able to take advantage of it. So just there's something about playing ranked in Call of Duty that it's sweaty, it's all that different stuff, but it's just fun because the competitive nature of it, at least to me, feels different than a lot of other games. And I think it's just because there's such a wealth of modes and such in Call of Duty, but even with that wealth of modes, you play domination. Nobody's playing domination. It's just deathmatch that has a longer timer. That's truly the only thing that's happening. When you play ranked, you're getting into that, okay, now suddenly people are having to play the objective, and it's that chess game. Like Call of Duty, and it has its flaws even on the pro side of things, but Call of Duty, when you're able to turn it into that chess match from the checkers that you've been playing in pubs, it is really good. And it can be really, really good. I don't know how Noah feels on that, but that's how I feel, at least when it comes to ranked, and I'm just loving it.
I definitely see that comparison because it was not comparing it to Overwatch in a sense, but there is a big difference in like Overwatch, for example, when Overwatch 1 was very popular and it's at when I wanted to play through and I wanted to learn every hero. There's a difference between just playing Overwatch and playing with every hero and learning every hero, like truly learning them and the maps and the mode. And that's what's kind of got me like, on that Call of Duty kick, playing and stuff while like I want to play search and stuff. Cause it's, there's a difference between playing the game and learning the game.
Yep.
At a whole different avenue and aspect. And I've just learned different stuff just from playing with you, listening to you and stuff. Because you've been on the scene more. I've just transitioned. I've been an Overwatch boy for a while. So
rank sucks in Overwatch.
that's hence my movement over to it. And I will rant about SBMM and rank play and all that stuff because my envisioning of a true ranked system is not, I don't think, probably technically achievable or, I guess foundationally sound. It's not for, the mass majority. So that I will just rant about that for forever. But yeah, it's definitely been a fun change of pace because like you said, going from 6v6 to 4v4, I'm so used to like having people watching lanes and then you forget that there's no one there. So
Yep.
but yeah, it's been a fun time. I've definitely enjoyed it. And I do have to shout out for those who are watching the COD gameplay. That last round, there was a pretty good player did a 1v4 clutch to win the game. I don't know who it was. But I
and it
think
was a
he's pretty
technical
good.
1v4, but it was a 1v4.
Yeah. So.
It's only because of the scoreboard that it was a 1v3, but it was a 1v4 because that person that died right after you got that first kill was very dead.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Noah clutched up that very last round in the footage.
And then I ranted for 30 minutes about SBMM and rank play.
Well,
because I was like, dude, David, we are bronze 2. Why is this diamond looking good, dude? In our lobby.
Yeah, but in all fairness, then we played a couple of them and pooped on them in other modes. So
yeah,
that's always the interesting thing when you play any ranked game is a lot of times those people smoke you but sometimes you have that person, those couple of people, and you just whip them, and you're like, bro, I hope you've been just playing a lot of matches, or you just had a really good day, because like
how
I
are
should
some of these
not be
players-
beating you.
How are some of these players that we've played? Like, how are they bronze? Like, how are they in the same? Because we haven't played a lot, so we haven't been able to play enough to move up in the ladder. And so
Yep.
some of these players are like, you guys are just
We-
cracked.
We played a control, and it's on the worst map of the game. It's arguably the worst mode and the worst map. And we played people who were just straight up bots. Like we actually had, so control, you start with 30 lives, you have 2 points to cap, whereas the other team has to play defense. We won a defensive round. I think it was 23. We had 23 lives to their 7 by the time the timer ran out. We just did not let them touch the point, and it's a bad map. It's very much a map that favors you get in the right spot on defense. They can't touch a point, but at the same point, it's like we should, as bronze players that are just now playing this, should not be able to get into that kind of a position and keep a team out. It just should not be. You should not be so bad that we die 7 times and you have 7 lives left. Like, we have as many kills as we have lives left. That just shouldn't be it. So that's that's kind of the fun of ranked, is sometimes you get the terrible draw, but there are times the game's like, well, I guess you're this person's kryptonite now.
Yeah.
We've heard Noah enough. Make him shut up. Like, here's you a dub.
Here's your freebie. Literally, it was I think we won that one 3-0.
Yeah, I do like skill-based matchmaking. I don't like. I'll say it this way. I like the idea of it. Lots of times it's implemented in wildly weird ways, and I get why. There's so many things to consider when you are pairing people for an online game that people play worldwide. It's a lot of things to consider. But those things end up making everything suffer at the same time for the people who actually, care about moving up and want to play with, and I get it. Like, if I were to go play basketball at the Y, like, I play basketball pretty hardcore. I am going to go there some nights, and there are going to be some people there that I'm like, yes, please be on my team. We can stay on the court all night long. Let's do this. And then I get stuck with some scrubs who, they barely know how to dribble the ball. So I get it. But when it comes to ranked, it should feel pretty even on both sides 90% of the time. Okay, maybe I'll be more gracious 80% of the time. But because I don't know what it is. See, this is where my math brain, I suck at math, but the desire to keep everybody in the 50% range, I've never understood that. I'm like, I get some people are supposed to win, some people are supposed to lose. I get that, but if the winners are winning, they're going to go up against the other people who are also winning, which then there you go. You got you got back and forth. You have worked your way up to the point where you get your back and forth. The ones who are losing, well, they're going to go up against the other people who are losing, and they're going to have their back and forth, and everybody else is in the middle, somewhere between we're winning, we're losing. I feel like conceptually, it should be that simple. I don't know why it's not. So,
yeah,
no,
I think,
I guess the good thing is Call of Duty thinks we can beat the diamonds of this world, so we should take it as a compliment.
3 games. In what world are you using our like pubs like MMR? Like to.
Well,
to
apparently
judge?
my HPR is so high
No,
that
they're over
I'm
here like,
it's my fault.
no, the devs are over here like, have you seen how many COD points this guy has? He's got to be cracked at the game. Like, that is what it is. It is not anything to do.
they don't even look at the MMR. They just look at your COD points. Who
Like,
is this guy?
I think once you plateau at a 50% win rate in ranked, I think that's probably where you should be until you improve. And I think that's, sorts out. Like for Overwatch, for instance, I don't understand their philosophy of, we don't want players to have a 50% win rate, in comp, but we want all heroes to have a 50% win rate. Like that makes no sense conceptually. So yeah, and I'm sure there's technical, things that they need to implement and stuff that, we have no clue. So it's weird to me. Like we were like in our second or third game and we were getting into like silver players in our ranked matches, and my thought process was like, we are babies in ranked. Well, like, are you trying to test us to see like, hey, can we go ahead and skip them up, more, or what? It's just, that's, like I said, again, I don't know what their player base is looking at for ranked, or how big their matchmaking pools are. So it's kind of hard to put two and two together when you only see half the equation. But I still just like ranting, like, what's this Diamond Boy doing in our I'm bronze 2. So
maybe Overwatch is dealing with the same thing. What are these Grandmaster players doing in silver matches? It's like, what is going on here?
Before we end it out completely, I have to give a shout out to my dad, who deals with the fact of he's not as fast as we are. He does not process as much as we do. When we say he's on your right, he looks at the left. But he still tries to do his best, and he does clutch. He does clutch some S&D for us. I'll at least give him the fact of, there's some moments in S&D where it's like, you should not have won that fight. But he can hold his own at least.
That's called aim assist.
Did you see that MP5? Those MP5 shots at one time? That was God guiding that bullet. Like, that bullet was not aimed at that guy's head. It just hit.
There was literally a COD dev just watching the screen, and he took his little mouse and was like, "I'm gonna help you out,
just
bud."
dragged it
back in because he's. On my
I was like, Dad. I've watched the movie. I've watched the movie Wanted. This is what's going on over here. He is a trooper, and he deals with us ranting over the top of everything, and he does bite back occasionally. But yeah, considering I have a dad who's about to turn 58 and still wants to play COD with his sons, even if it's in ranked, that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty dope. And I guarantee he's clutching some of these moments because these young folk, these
whippersnappers.
Yeah, these young whippersnappers out here, they don't understand the old movements. They look, what is he doing? Wait, what?
I hit push. I've hit push to talk and said, y'all got by a 57-year-old man.
Yeah.
Just because I got to rub it in on.
That's what I'm saying. They don't understand. Wait, he's walking normally. He just walked around the corner. He didn't jump. They're looking up, expecting the jump.
Yeah. See, what's funny is we've essentially made him drop shot at this point because we changed his controller configuration to where instead of melee for his right click, it is crouch. And obviously, if you hold that down, you go straight down. Well, when things get intense for Dad, he grips his controller real hard, and he accidentally drops. So he's getting these drop shot kills on accident because we made him change his controller configuration.
There you go.
We playing that long.
You got to play to the strengths. Yeah. You got to play to the strengths.
And his strength is accidentally doing it like every time.
Hey, if it gets you wins.
Some of the time it works, all of the time.
Yeah. So I told Dave, I was like, dude, I don't care who wins or how many kills each of us get, as long as we get the dub. I do not care.
Hey, shout out to you had a 2 KD in that hard point we won the other day, 32 and 16, man.
I also had a 12 KD in that battle thing we played because I found the lane where the bots just ran in zombies. I thought I was playing Left 4 Dead.
What's funny is it doesn't count you killing bots. It only counts you killing players. So the players were bots too.
It looked like scene from Last of Us. Like they're just funneling down the airport terminal. I was like, okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's fun times.
Riveting Call of Duty. All
It's
right.
fun. It's fun. We need to get you in on it sometime, Anthony. We really do.
I suck at Call of Duty so bad.
We don't care.
Especially ranked.
We don't care.
If you don't pass David's training trial, though, he will call you out and make you cry.
I know.
Actually, it's more like my brother will like just throw daggers at you. So
Yeah, I imagine, and I'm the one. I'll start cussing them back.
There's
it won't be cursed. We're all clean. We just
will. That's
you're
the thing.
trash.
Like, I get so intense. A few MFers will come out. It's like,
see, I can't trash
I'm
talk
trying to
'cause I'm
control myself,
cracking up.
y'all.
I'm cracking up at David the whole time. Like, that's why I can't trash talk. Like, hearing David, who's like the most friendly guy I know, like super nice guy, just telling some poor 12-year-old on the other team to go cry to his dad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Noah jumps on, and I know this is like down a rabbit trail. Yeah, Noah logs it, like you hear the noise of him logging into the party, and it's right at the moment where I guess we won a round. It was either we won a round or we like. It might have been deathmatch, and I just was not having a good day. But I'm like, go cry harder, like screaming. Yeah. What's funny is my SteelSeries noise canceling AI on through the GG app, my equalizer. I had to turn it down because I was getting so high pitched it was actually canceling out the noise because I've been screaming and it's been canceling out the noise so nobody's hearing any call outs.
I love it when David's mic peaks because it's just like and it just cuts to silence. It's the best.
There was something important in there.
It lets me see the tone of how the night's gonna go. It sets the stages up early.
Yep. Yep.
Wherever David goes, that's where the matches go.
Yep.
All right. That's the Call of Duty Season 2. There you go. Well, I finished some Hi-Fi Rush, so, that doesn't match the highs of Call of Duty Ranked and whatnot, but I found it to be really good. I was closer to the finish than I thought last week, so I finished in the next 2 nights. I only played for about an hour a night, so I got through it. There is not much wrong with this game. I don't know if you guys have played it or beat it. There is not a lot wrong with it. Combat flows very well. It's exciting. There's lots to think about. It's fast. I originally wondered if it would be fast enough. It is. There's so many things you can consider. There's so many different. So I ended up buying every combo just to see if I could button mash. No, you can't button mash. You still have to, intentionally press certain buttons to get certain combos. I mostly stuck with the same combos because they worked. There was a few skills that I bought with my support characters that did a little bit more damage, but I can't remember every single combo. Maybe there's people out there that, they can, but the ones I chose worked for me and helped a lot. So I appreciate the fact that with all the options that you have, you could pretty much play the way you want. So despite the combos, despite how it looks and it can feel rigid, it's not at all. So you got plenty of options to do. Character dialogue is fantastic. The story is great. David loves Chai. I hated Chai. Still don't really like Chai, but he came around at the end. He matured a little bit. He got a little better. So that was great. All the other characters, learned to chill out a little bit themselves. They lightened up. So it kind of went in the direction I thought it was going to go. I was hoping it would go because I really didn't want to hate Chai as much as I did. So I hate him a little bit less. But, the type of doofusness that Chai is, it was a little too much for my taste. But I at the end, I was like, no, I love every little bit of the relationships and how they relate to each other and, the camaraderie and all that good stuff. So music ended up growing on me. I wasn't a fan of the soundtrack at first. There wasn't, I don't even know how to explain it. I was trying to figure out a way to explain it. It's one of the rare times I can't figure out how to describe music, but basically it wasn't resonating. It wasn't sticking with me the melodies weren't clicking with me. It's not that the music was bad, it just wasn't memorable. And I am all for video game music where I remember the tunes as I'm playing, and it just wasn't. So I'd be listening to the soundtrack on YouTube, and finally I got probably to the 2-hour mark, and it was like, oh, okay, here's a song that's clicking with me. Okay, cool. I like that song. And then I listened to it a second time, and more songs started to click with me a little bit more. So it grew on me. It's a good soundtrack for sure. It's not one of my favorites, but it's definitely good. It fits the game very well. I will say that. And boss battles. Yeah. Those were good. Those were very good. The only one that sucked was Mimosa, but they were really good. What is that? Oh my gosh. I'm drawing a blank on who's the red girl name? Oh my gosh.
Even I don't remember that.
Security guard.
Siri, what's the red-haired security guard's name?
Yeah, there you go. Hi-Fi Rush. Yeah, you got to throw in the Hi-Fi Rush because she's going to throw out any redhead. Now I'm going to look it up real quick. Hi-Fi Rush characters. Hold up. I got to figure this out. Corsica. There we go. Corsica. Her boss fight? Dope. That was the best boss fight in the game. 100%. The last two boss fights were really good also. So I enjoyed those. Mimosas, I don't know. It wasn't a great fight. But and then it was just a beautiful game. From top to bottom, it was a very, very good game. And I just wish more games were like Hi-Fi Rush, where it feels complete, it feels polished, and it's just good. It knows what it is and it does it. And so many different games try to do different things, try to get outside of what they are. They're not polished. They're not ready to go. This was that. I think, is Tango Gameworks' best game.
That's something most games don't do enough of, too. Knowing what they are and doing it well. Like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with trying out some new ideas and stuff, but the crux of it has to be just doing your thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean,
that's what the best games are.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it with games that repeat themselves. Call of Duty, for example. You could tell when Call of Duty starts stepping out of itself a little bit. It's like, nah, we don't like that. Nah, and it suffers for that. Battlefield 2042, great example of a game that stepped outside of itself. Try to be something it was not. Live service, battle royale ish type of thing. No, that's not what you are. Stick to what you are. You can try to do stuff. That's fine. I ain't got no problem with that. But stick to what you are. You're going to have better reception that way. Hi-Fi Rush knows exactly what it is, and it does it. There were a few cracks in the game, though. I played it on hard, and it wasn't until the end where I started seeing some of the rhythm problems. So for most of the game, there's really no problem with, attacking on rhythm. But near the end of the game, more beats are happening and more parries you have to do, more blocking right in time. And so because of the way the game is, your button pressing has to be just a smidge before the actual beat, because the actual button press it's not like a mouse click or like a drum pad. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have to press it. There's a little give before the actual, I guess, before the button actually responds, right? So if you were to tap your B button on your Xbox controller, you're not going to get an immediate response because there's just that little squish, which is fine for most games. But when you have to, do a lot of things at one time in rhythm, it starts to suffer a little bit. So the final boss fight, there are moments where like lasers are getting shot at you, and the beat is like, right? That one pause, you feel it, but because you pause, if you press the button right on rhythm, you're going to be late because that pause is a little bit longer because you have to actually press the button. Where, if you were using a mouse or literally like a drum pad type of button, it would be pretty instantaneous. You'd be able to do it, but you kind of got to almost just press it all the way through. So that way you can nail all the stuff. So that was really irritating at the end. And then you have a grappling hook. Great for drawing yourself into enemies and keeping your combo streak going. Really annoying when there's a bunch of enemies because you want to try to grapple to one specific enemy and the game chooses basically for you what enemy you're going to grapple to. So when you got a whole bunch and they're all kind of cluttered together and you're trying to grapple, it's like this guy who's really fast, I want to grapple to him, but nope, it grapples to kind of the closest guy to you. So it's like you don't get to execute what you want to execute. So that's just annoying. It wasn't game breaking. You could get through it, but I wish I had a little bit more control over that specifically. But that was near the end of the game. I wonder how much that would have made a difference if I would have played on the easier difficulty. I'm not sure. I don't know what it felt like to play on the easier difficulty, but it was definitely a challenge on hard. I liked it. I thought it was mostly fair outside of those two things, but even still, I beat the game. It wasn't like, it was difficult, but it wasn't impossible because of those things. So, yeah, Hi-Fi Rush, fantastic, definitely. All right,
So definitely a game of the year nom. You think?
I don't. You gotta wait to see what else comes out.
And there's a bunch. There is a bunch.
There's a lot of stuff coming out. I mean,
Which
yeah.
also
So
like
for me, go ahead. Yeah,
it's just really impressive that like it just got shadow dropped, like it did. And
Yeah.
they just kind of let like, we know our game's good. We don't have to spend, unga boonga amount of money on advertising. We can just let our game drop, and we know how good it is and how good it'll perform without needing to hype it up itself. Like they let the game hype itself up, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, I wonder what the conversation would have been like if we would have seen stuff like previews. Like if we would have been able to play previews, or if they just show. Yeah, because people now you get to scrutinize it, and we've all played other rhythm-based games, so you kind of take from that and then insert what you think it might feel like, what it might play like, based on what it looks like. So I believe that even if that were the case, it would overcome that because it just plays that well. It's so good. But I do wonder how much difference the conversation would be if we had known about it in advance.
Yep, I agree. It's the benefit. It benefited from its mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same with Apex Legends. People forget Apex Legends more or less shadow dropped. And
it did shadow drop. There was not more or less.
Yeah,
we knew nothing about that.
We knew more. We knew more about like the fact that they were doing something, I guess, with something. Whereas we really had no idea that Hi-Fi Rush was doing anything. So
yeah, that's Tango Gameworks' best game for sure. As far as game of the year, I mean, I am the type of person, I will pick a really good creative game over a big AAA. I'm the one who picked Sifu over, something like Elden Ring, which I didn't play a whole bunch of Elden Ring, so that definitely colored my perception. But Sifu was amazing. One of a great beat 'em up, which is a genre that's been around for decades, and it totally did it in a unique, brand new way that was challenging but fair and just straight up fun. So this is that kind of game, but we're so early. We still have Tears of the Kingdom. For me, if they improve on stuff out of Breath of the Wild, and I keep playing that, that's going to be up there. I love Zelda. I just didn't love Breath of the Wild. Even it's a remake, but Dead Space has been doing very well too, right? So like, I doubt it would be nominated for Game of the Year, but games do. There's some good games right now. Just right now, we're in March, so I'm not gonna suggest it can't be Game of the Year, because it is that good. But I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. You will see. I know what won't be game of the year, Destiny 2 Lightfall, but that dropped.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I'll let you lead this one, Noah.
So, before I get into it, do you, do I need to be spoiler free or slightly into spoiler territory? Because
Uh,
a lot of the issues are very spoiler heavy.
I guess if you could dance around it, only because I
Okay.
feel like maybe some listeners may not, whoever decides to listen to this may not, want the spoilers. So
Okay.
you can
So
dance around it, go
I
for
and
it. I personally don't
stuff.
care about spoilers, but yeah.
If it's in the trailer and stuff, I'll definitely uh
Okay. Yeah.
um talk about it. But so I finished soloing the legendary campaign, um, and gave it some time to marinate, to let it cook, to see if, a day after completing it, if my first impressions or thoughts, which, because a lot of this is going to be first impressions, because there's a lot of stuff post launch, post campaign that will hopefully develop Neomuna more. Um, so yeah, it's kind of a first impressions talk, if you wanna call it that. I'm gonna start off with the best way I would describe Lightfall is exactly the way that Bungie kind of hyped it up a little bit with their comparison to it being like a summer action blockbuster. Um, which with not every movie in that genre, but a lot of those, they're fun as long as you don't actually think about what's going on. Because if
Mm.
you start to think about the plot, the narrative, the characters, you're going to travel down a rabbit hole of disappointing things and things that should not have gone certain paths. But I want to start off with some of the things that I actually liked, which was the combat in the campaign as a whole. I thought was pretty solid, uh, on par with Witch Queen, because this is what it's going to be compared to as Witch Queen. Um, Strand, I want to hit that first because that's like the big new subclass that we're getting. It's thread based. I I enjoyed it, except for there were some times when I feel like it it messed with my builds, like for certain encounters. They're like, hey, you need to use Strand to do all this stuff, and it's like, bro, I'm running a Gerfalcon volatile, a Monarch, and it's popping off for me right now. There's Strand is not the same power level, as what I'm running right now. Um, there's it felt like, Strand is going to be kind of a more, which I played my playthrough on a hunter, so I can't speak for Titan or Warlock. Um, which I've heard the Titan's pretty good, Warlock's okay, Hunters. I've seen some pretty cool boss melting with the Strand super, but it feels definitely like a utility kit with the grapple and the CC, the crowd control that it has the potential to. Um, there's a melee combo that you can do where you can grapple onto an enemy and then combo it up into a melee attack, and it does kind of an AoE pushback. It didn't connect like as much as I would have liked. There were times when I grappled up to an enemy and I just ended up throwing my melee. Like it just didn't hit, which was kind of odd. But Strand as a whole, the placement throughout the game, I think, is its worst. Is almost a detriment to it, because it's like, hey, here's the Strand, and then boom, gone. Like,
Hmm.
okay, I got to toy with a little bit, and then you move on, through the story a little bit. It pops up, boom, I can use Strand for one section of the game, and then move on. So you're constantly having to flip back and forth between the build that you are currently running, and then having to adjust to having Strand, and then moving back and forth. So it just very hit and miss with the timing of it. Um, which it played very well into the mechanics of the campaign as a whole, I think, with the grappling around and stuff. Um, there were some, like the Tormentors, for instance. I liked some of the parts where you could use the grapple to, easily evade them, because the tormentors are scary. They're a new enemy type. Bungie wanted them to be more terrifying than the Guardian Hive, the Light Bearers. I forgot the name for a second. But they were terrifying. They did a good job with that. Like when the first one drops in, you know that it's not going to be a fun time if you're a solo player. Straight up terrifying. Which I'll get to them into the narrative here in a bit. The only thing combat wise that I would say is a pretty negative aspect is the final boss fight is pretty boring. It's not very mechanically driven or unique. One of the great things about the Witch Queen campaign was the Savathun final boss fight, where you're swapping in this big area or having to move around to different points and then do damage, swapping into the Throne World or the Ascendant Plane, coming back to the Throne World. Really cool, unique engagement with Savathun. This, the final boss fight, you're pretty much in a room running away from him the entire time. It's not very complex or unique, which, some people will like that, some people won't. I personally didn't. I didn't find it engaging at all. But yeah, combat, I think they did a pretty good job with. And that's what I liked about Lightfall. Now to what I didn't like, and what a lot of people didn't like, just from the discussions and talk that I've seen and other like content creators and whatnot. Moving into the narrative, I think if I had to sum it up, this ain't it, Chief. Narrative tone was everywhere in this game. Man, was it everywhere. This was supposed to be, a lot of people, myself included, compared this, just from the setup and the hype that Bungie was giving this, and with the final shape being the next big expansion, this was supposed to be Infinity War. The lines are drawn. We've got our allies. The Traveler has, the allies with us. The Witness has his. The lines were drawn. This was supposed to be the first of two, big expansions where the Light and Darkness saga is going to end. This felt like a filler expansion. Some people have been calling this Stranded expansion because that was the main focal point. There's a lot of plot points with Strand that I could get into, but that's spoilery. I think the community as a general has been left with more questions than answers, especially considering where the campaign just stops. It ends and you're just sitting there wondering what is going to happen next, but then you realize we have to wait a year to find out, which would be fine if, like how in Infinity War, the snap happened and we're like, oh, we have to wait, to see what happens in Endgame. But we knew everything in Infinity War was explained, why things happened, why they went this way. There's none of that in Lightfall. Like, there's Nimbus, who's a new character. He's kind of the young, charismatic, doesn't play by the rules rookie, to Rohan, who is the grizzled veteran who's strictly, by the book, the wise. It's the pairing that we've seen in every, action movie, which is, why I think Bungie has deemed it their inspiration. They're as forgettable because you barely interact with them and see them. It's just not, you don't get enough time to let them cook and connect with you. Nimbus, he's pretty annoying. There are some scenes where it's pretty intense what's supposed to be going on, and he's just cracking these very cheesy, kiddish jokes, and you're just kind of sitting there like, bro, The room is not on your level of humor right now. um, so it's just all over the place. There's a sense of urgency at the very start of the um, campaign, which you've seen, Anthony, where it's like, hey, the witness, he's here. Like it's about to go down and stuff. Like we need the big fight's about to start. The war is afoot. And immediately after that, you go into filler arc. We got to find the veil. Why it's important, we don't know why. We never find out why the veil's important, what the veil is. All of this stuff that, is supposed to be so important. We spend our most of the campaign trying to acquire Strand and use it properly, which I get what they were going for, but there was not enough time to fit the Lightfall main storyline and the Strand. It felt like it just diverged. Like, hey, we're just going to forget about the Traveler, the Witness, everyone else fighting for their lives over here. We're going to go on our little side quest to acquire this new power. So it didn't hit, and a lot of people have felt the same way. I've noticed it's been pretty universal that things just tonality wise did not land with what we were expecting, because Lightfall is after this, which come to find out, it I think in the TWAB today, Bungie said that they're going to need an actual extra expansion to round out the Light and Dark saga. So Lightfall or Final Shape is not going to be the final one, from what it's looking. Yeah, which after once you play the campaign, Anthony, and you see, because I'm trying to be very vague, you'll see why, because nothing really gets answered.
The last expansion will be the final shape.
The final shape, the final to shape. But yeah, it wasn't it, Chief. Like, and I'm not a lore guy, like a heavy lore guy. I'm no Bife, no Mylan. I can hold my own with the casual lore base. I'm pretty involved in that, but I'm no Bife. The Veil, which is this paracausal thing that is hugely important to both the Traveler and the Witness, which you spend the entire campaign trying to keep Callus away from. When after the entire campaign, you have Bife, who is one of the biggest lore people in the Destiny community. When he still has no idea what the Veil is, I think there's an issue. With all the lore cards that he reads and studies, it's an issue. And I'll round out my little narrative rant with, I was expecting more seriousness and more of a confrontation between us and the Witness, because from the way it was talking, Final Shape was going to be it with the Light and Darkness saga. We don't know what's afterwards, but it feels like we're still being pulled along by Daddy Savala with the story. Like, hey, come on this little adventure, buddy. You're the most integral part of the team, but we're going to treat you like a side character. I was really hoping that by the end of this campaign, we were going to have our first confrontation with the Witness. Like, I'm no story writer by any means, but we should have had our first confrontation with the Witness, and it should have been a size up. Like, we should have sized him up. He should have sized us up, and it should have been the realization for him that, hey, we're a threat, because he is not treating us as a threat at all throughout this entire. He doesn't even look at us. We have no interaction with the Witness, which I think, the penultimate chapter, it should have been our first. Like, I wanted us to, have a little bit of confidence boost that we can actually defeat this entity, and for this entity to realize, hey, this Guardian, they're kind of serious. They mean business. So it just, none of that happened. So unsatisfied, I think, is a good term for it. And I could go, I would say big deep dive into spoiler talk, but Yeah.
So it's Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, essentially.
it's filler. It's filler. Like exactly. Like we could just go on our own little side quest to get this new power that spoiler reason we were having a sussy Ghost this entire time. Like Ghost has been a little sussy. It's different moments in the campaign, and there's one part where like nobody was looking at the sussy Ghost like this whole time. Like, and we could have easily, with our new Strand ability, could have stopped a certain event from happening, but no, we just forgot we had Strand and spent the entire expansion learning how to master it. Yeah, it's just filler. It needs to marinate a little bit more. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, because you played like the first mission.
Right here, if you're watching, is
on
where I stopped after I died. Well, gee, okay. Now I kind of just want to turn it off legendary and just finish it. And just like I just want to see what's happening.
The legendary was fun. Like I enjoyed it. I had a Gerfalcon volatile build, like I said, and I stomped through the campaign. Except for a couple of boss fights, the main one being the final one. But the Tormentors, great addition. Neomuna as a patrol planet, cool. It's cyberpunky. There, again, spoilers I can't get into. There are some narrative decisions with the people of Neomuna that I question and wasn't the direction that I would have went. But yeah, it's okay. It's nowhere near the quality of Witch Queen. It's better than Shadowkeep. I don't even know if it's better than Beyond Light. I need to let it sit and really think and see what the post launch involves.
Better than the Taken King.
See, Taken King is like S tier in my opinion. I adore the Taken King. Like it, Forsaken.
It's better than Forsaken.
No. I think Forsaken's probably, if it is not I think it's probably tied with Witch Queen for best campaigns for Destiny as a whole, in my opinion. Like I think it's those two.
You can't play either of them anymore, though.
Which, speaking of, I'm a veteran of Destiny. I pick up on a lot of things. There's a new strike, which is a great strike. Amazing strike.
One of the things I've been looking forward to is playing the new strike. I love doing strikes.
Yeah, this new strike is great. Which, back to the narrative, there is a whole like Vex invasion thing going on while all of this is happening that we have to deal with. Could have been easily cut out and not made a difference. But still, I digress. Back to the strike focus. It is one of the better strikes that we've gotten in the new era, in my opinion. But for those of you who played there's like the dungeon or the raid layers that Destiny put out, where it's like small raids, but they're now just called dungeons. There was one called Eater of Worlds. That was a pretty fun one where you involve like crystals, shooting those, breaking them. Really fun interaction. It feels like, hey, do you want to copy my homework but don't make it look the same? Like I'm sitting here literally, playing this. I'm like, this is the Eater of Worlds final boss and the Eater of Worlds like final encounter area. Like this feels strangely familiar. Which did you do the Eater of Worlds raid layer, Anthony?
No.
Okay. Yeah, there's
I didn't
literally
have people to play with.
There's literally platforming
reason.
sections in the Eater of Worlds layer. It's for the exact same platforms. And so like I think if you're a new player and stuff, you're like, oh, that's really cool. But veteran players were sitting there like, I see you, Bungie. Which I mean, I'm fine with reissued content and stuff, like reskinned guns and stuff. I'm fine with because 90% of players use the same like 10 guns out of their vault, and that's it, depending on what's meta. So it's,
I've been using the same 4 guns for 4 years,
exactly,
meta or not. Rocking the Monte Carlo. Yeah, I don't care. I'm old.
Which I just have to my last rant about the narrative. There is a part where it is probably the most important moment of the narrative, and Keitel, who's been our ally now, she's dope. She's like, hey, you have to stop this thing from doing this thing. You have to shoot it down. And our guardian has a moment of like, oh, should I shoot this thing, to stop this thing? Being very vague. Pulls out a Kvostov, which is a D1 weapon that is not in the game currently in Destiny 2. So our character uses a game that is not in the game, or uses a gun that is not in the game, which I thought was really funny. So yeah, there's a lot I could rant about, but being vague limits a lot of that.
No, I hear you. By the way, Trinity Ghoul is what I really like using. That I love that.
Trinity Ghoul boy, yeah,
I love that bow. I'm a bow guy. If I can find a good bow, oh yes.
Like I said, Le Monarch and Gerfalcons with volatile rounds carried me through this.
Yeah, do I have a Le Monarch? I think I do have a Le Monarch. So, but I run Titan. So, but what's interesting, you say all that, because the first thing I noticed once all the campaign stuff started was, everybody knows the witness is here now. Okay, great. So like we just get started and the witness is here. Wait, when we ended the Witch Queen, like we saw the witness. Nobody knew the witness was actually like present and in the vicinity. We start the game and the witness is here. Mr. Savala giving his narration, and okay, great. Did something happen during the seasons that I missed? Sure. Okay, quite possibly. Witness shows up during the seasons. I'll let that pass. All right. So we get a little bit further. Okay, we're going to go get this veil thing. Okay, great. The veil seems to be important, says Osiris. The Vanguard all says that the veil is important. What's the veil? Can we get a little detail on the veil, please? I just want to know what's important. Does it control the traveler if like you get it? Because that would be kind of crazy to know. I don't know what it does. And apparently nobody does. So
no one does. When Daddy Bife, like Lord Daddy, as he was deemed, when he still has no clue.
That's what I'm saying. So the fact that you said, first of all, I love the way you described all that narrative stuff, because already I am feeling like this feels very Marvel movie, where there's serious tones to it, but there's so much humor involved in it that it
takes away.
Yeah. When this is like a critical story moment, like this is not the time for humor. Not a lot of it, at least. And that's exactly what Marvel movies do all the time. So it felt like that from the get-go. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
It's like they haven't been able to replace Cade 6. Like Cade 6 was the perfect, like, interject a little bit of humor, like, sarcasm into these big plot points. They haven't found a character who can do that yet. So they're having to take these characters and like put these, like, one of the reoccurring things of the community. There's this like pretty serious tone with Keitel, and a confrontation like with Callus, her dad, big father-daughter fight, and Nimbus, a new character, which, I mean, he's fine as a new character. He's like nothing to write home about. But he just comes in and makes this really cheesy joke about Callus being ugly. And it just completely desensitizes and devalues the entire tone. So it's that whole, you went too Marvel-y, like a lot of the Marvel stuff now is they went too much into the humor. It needs to be dialed back a lot.
Well, the Cade 6 point is a really interesting point I hadn't considered, because when Cade 6 died, I feel like that humor, that Destiny 2 died with it, and it needs to stay dead. You know, like not saying there can be no humor at all, but you can't replace the humor Cade 6 brought because that was Cade 6. Like that was his thing. So it's very interesting. Destiny started as like this super hyper serious game. Like Destiny 1, it was like very serious. No humor, really bland, monotone, like Earth is taking over. Like, and it was like, all right, like cool, we could do this thing. And then as the storytelling becomes a little bit better, voice acting becomes a little bit, Cade 6 comes around and he is, becoming more humorous and all that stuff. And it works because he was the humor and it was placed well. It wasn't overdone at all. Not everything Cade 6 said was a joke. And so they did very well with it. Cade 6 dies. All right. I get it. This is Nathan Phil who's the voice actor for him?
It was Fillion until Forsaken, and then I'm drawing a blank. He voiced I'm drawing a blank.
Go ahead. You look that up, but either way, like he had to go do something else. They had to, so basically they had to kill off Cade 6 because
Nolan North went to voice him afterwards.
Oh, I thought he did. Oh,
yeah,
he was also the ghost.
He was also the ghost. Okay.
Yep.
All right, didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure Nathan Fillion found out they were killing Cade off in Forsaken and was like, no. If you guys are gonna kill me.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was the opposite way around. I thought Nathan had got contracted to do something else, so they had to kill off Cade 6. But all right, either way, so they kill off Cade. Whatever the reason is, either way, he's gone. So I felt like Destiny was at the point where it wasn't so serious, even with or without Cade 6. Did I say 6? And so it didn't need to try to fill in the gap like that. That just wasn't necessary. So, Witch Queen had some humor in it, but it was sprinkled nicely. Now, from the very beginning, after the introduction of the witness being present, it's humor. Like in weird spots. It's just like, why are we cracking jokes right now? So that, to me, at this point, hearing everything that you've said, I feel like Bungie has been disrespectful to its community with this because you knew what you advertised Lightfall as. You knew what it was supposed to be. But you didn't put in the work to make the story relevant. So we paid for it. It plays fine. Like it's Destiny. Yeah. It is interesting. The little tormentor. I mean, you saw me die to him, but I mean, interesting kind of character to fight. Like I'm down for it. But story-wise, like we are looking forward to what's going to happen. That's the biggest reason why I jumped into Lightfall. Like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but it doesn't stick with me like that anymore. But like you, I'm really into the lore. No, I'm not Biff or Bife, but I'm into it.
Yeah,
I watch the videos, I'm keeping up with the stuff. I want to understand. I want to get the nuances and stuff, like, and especially after Witch Queen, I got really into it. I was like, what is going on with this stuff with the pyramid and the disciple of the witness, and all that stuff. I was like, oh, this is dope. Lightfall comes, waiting for at least the build up to the climax, and to know that it's filler. That's so disrespectful of Bungie to treat it like that.
and it's, you bring that up, like it's not been confirmed, but there are heavy leaks suggesting that the final shape, which is the next year's big expansion, um, there are rumors that it was originally the Lightfall expansion, and then the expansion afterwards was going to be the um, the end of the Light and Dark saga. And so we don't know if it was because of like production issues. We don't know if it was, COVID with everyone transitioning, to remote work. We just don't know. But they pushed back what was originally going to be the Lightfall expansion to the final shape. And so upon hearing those leaks, and if that's true, that explains heavily why this feels like filler.
Still no excuse though.
Oh, no.
Because I get the difficulties of development. This is a live service game. This is something you communicate.
Yep.
Because you did not set the expectation correctly then. If you knew that, hey, because of development issues, which we can get into some of it, we had to make Lightfall this. The final shape will not be the last. It will be the second to the last. This, we hope, will be able to fill in some gaps before the final shape, give you some more context, do all that. But they don't even have enough in the story to do that. We don't know what the veil is. We don't know what other things are. So what kind of filler is this? It don't even have calories. What are we getting filled up with? It's nonsense.
Yep. Like one of my favorite characters is Mara Sov. I think she's one of those complex, unique. She is what I would deem a big player in the, main storyline between, like, when she shows up, that things are serious.
Yeah.
And she is a great character because, we saw whenever one of the biggest threats in D1 was the Taken King, Astacross, who I like his content. I like a lot of his thoughts. He brought this up and it made so much sense. In the Taken King, Oryx showing up was a big issue. Like, hey, he's a problem. Like, this is big issue stuff. And what did Mara do? She said, don't worry, Guardians. Like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet him headlong into this huge fight, and did her, like, witchy stuff, And what happens when the Witness, who is an even bigger threat, that encapsulates all of us needing to fight him, what happens? They all are delegated to sitting in the helm and sending out ships to go fight him, while we have to go on our fetch quest to get Strand. Like, it just, these big players for such a big situation. Like, I think Zavala, Mara, you can even throw in Ikor, like Elsie, all of those, they should have been like, we're about to throw some haymakers at the Witness. Like, there was no fight. It was, they just sat back and let the Witness, which I get, he's a very terrifying presence that they could have been, frozen in fear. We don't know what to do or how to confront this, but for us being, so powerful of beings in this universe, the fact that there was no confrontation at all between them and the Witness, or us and the Witness, there was no connection there that I liked. It feels like we're side players. Like, we're watching them two do their little spat with the Witness and the Traveler. They're doing their little, like, hey, I don't like you, you don't like me thing. And we're just having to watch. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just...
So that part, I think I understand what they were trying to do. The Traveler is supposed to be, the Traveler, the most the most powerful thing that provides light for all of them. And then you have the Witness, who apparently is the darkness incarnate. And so he's the most powerful dark being. And so you see this fight break out where it's like, okay, yeah, it's the two most powerful beings. Yep, maybe we should probably sit this one out and let the traveler handle it, right? Like, so I can, if that's what they were trying to do, I could get that. But they made the traveler just look like a straight punk. I'm like,
Yeah,
he's just walking through the light. Like, I'm just going to stroll through the light beam and do his
Just
little finger
like,
stuff and divide stuff and bring the
hand
pyramids
signs,
and surround the traveler again. You know, like we're back to the first beginning of Forsaken again. So like, I don't, that way of making the witness like this really powerful character didn't vibe with me. Like, I didn't like the way that, because it was like, so is the traveler a punk? Like,
Yeah, he got one shot by the witness.
Like, yeah, like, is the traveler really that strong? Which maybe that's a narrative, because in the Witch Queen, like, people are starting to question like the traveler, you know, and like, what's his power?
Mm-hmm.
Who is he actually like for? Like, is the light really like just all good? You know, like, how is the light distributed if the hive are, you know, like, there's all these questions about the light, what it is, who the traveler, who is he for? Is he actually trying to protect everybody? Like, what's going on? I don't mind that. I think that's really interesting. But then to have this moment between the witness and the traveler, and it's like, all right, traveler seems to be on our side, and he just gets punked. And it's like, it gets punked. All right, like, I feel like this should have been a lot like of a bigger thing. Like, at least make the traveler look exhausted. He just looked like he was just throwing this beam out and let, you know, like almost inviting the witness in.
I would have much appreciated the narrative being the end of the season of the Seraph, which is when, you know, the witness shows up and the traveler went out to meet him, is like a protector.
Right, left
like,
Earth,
hey, I'm
right?
Yeah, he
Yep.
popped up. I would have much preferred it to be that not happen. Like, what you was a great end to the season. But instead of that, I think it would have been much cooler and more linear if, you know, for Lightfall, like, hey, the witness he's on our doorstep, like, he's almost here. We know he's been coming, like, the travelers went out to prepare. You know, we need, while we're preparing here, you need to go and get Strand at the Veil. You know, so that gives us a reason to go to Neptune and get the Strand. Like, hey, why do we need to get that? Well, it's important because Callus is going there to get it for the witness. So the witness sends his fetch boy. We, being the fetch boys as guardians, we get sent to go stop him. Once we stop him, we have Strand. We secured the Veil. Then that's when the big traveler witness confrontation comes, and then I'm fine with like the traveler getting one shot by the witness, essentially, because that could lead into the moment of like comparing it to Infinity War because it's so good, but that moment when Thanos gets the gauntlet and all the heroes just kind of get wiped, and then you realize, hey, now we have to figure out a way to win, you know, after we lose. I would have much preferred that as a linear, instead of like, while all this is going on, we're fighting Callus over this thing that's important that we still never see and we don't know what it is. Called the Veil. So like I said, I think narratively there are some things that if they could have swapped things around or done it different, I think they could have had a banger, like hands down, a really solid expansion. But you know, we'll see if the lore bits that come, you know, post campaign with the books, and we'll wait for Bife to see if he changes his mind, because he dropped a bomb on them, big like 30-minute video. So it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is, and to see if Bungie addresses some things and talks about why they did some things. So
yeah, they need to. That's for sure.
Which they're good about communicating stuff. I love them for how open they are with us as a community. And that's why, like, even with stuff I don't agree with, or if I think they did the wrong thing, like I like that there's a conversation that can be had with them. You know, they're very open.
100%.
because there's a lot of studios that don't do that kind of communication with their fan base. And as crazy as us D2 fans are, props to them for putting up with us.
Oh yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. It is. They are that. I just, because of what the Lightfall was advertised as, what the expectations were set for, especially for those who do care about the lore, or at least have some semblance of interest in it, like I do. Literally bought Lightfall for the story, and now I'm like, I kind of want to just blast through it just to see how like my reaction, instead of like enjoying the like campaign aspect of it, difficulty and all that. 'Cause that's what I'm interested in. So because maybe I won't feel as intense as you do. Maybe, as a person who's not as deep.
Yeah, which and there will
be like, no, this was satisfying. I don't think that. I think I'm deep enough to probably not have that reaction, but
there will be people who enjoy this campaign, and that's props to them. Like, yeah, that's right. Like, there were people, I've seen people talk about who absolutely really liked the campaign and enjoyed it, which it is a fun campaign. But just don't think about the plot. Is a like, if you know if you know all the chess pieces that are being played and stuff, they just, and we could. That's why I'm curious to see how this thing stands over the test of time. Like, once we get to final shape and then the expansion past that, are we going to be able to look back and be like, I see why they did this?
Sorry, I just saw David's tweet. He posted in the private chat. I wonder if I could put that in there. Keep talking.
I'm curious to see, like, if Bungie did this filler episode. It might feel like filler to us, but if they may be playing the long game over 3 expansions of a final story, but we don't know that. We were thought this was one of 2, and so going in expecting one of 2, I wanted more. I had high expectations because of how much Bungie was hyping this up. That's so true, Dave. You don't even know. But yeah,
I'm about to put it up.
So my only, it's literally my only contribution to this entire conversations, because I am not
there patiently.
So let me go ahead and at least put this out there. So I already have Shadowkeep from when it came out. That was when I was still working at GameStop, so I got it for free. I got Beyond Light recently, and I went ahead and bought Witch Queen while it was on sale, just because I'm like, you know what, I'll give this a try.
I think you'll like it. You'll like Witch.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll like most things and stuff. But yeah, I thought this was funny. Mass Effect fans seeing Destiny fans freak out over a contextless MacGuffin and Deus Ex Machina being introduced to them without any explanation in the final act of a saga. First time.
Yep.
The James Franco first time meme. It's just great.
It's so good. Like, and David, I think you'll enjoy Witch Queen, because I think generally are one who appreciates good villains, and Savathun is a fantastic villain.
And I've heard that.
Yeah.
Who in the very end could end up being an ally to us. Like, that is how complex of a character she is.
Yeah.
Like Callus, he's your main, I guess, opposite in this campaign with Lightfall. He doesn't get that. He doesn't nearly get that well of a treatment. It's
considering how they're doing things, she's gonna come in and like fart on the witness's head and be like, "Oh, TikTok.
Like,
did we get that on our TikTok? Did we get that on the Witch Queen TikTok?"
He dropping in like, I feel like they went from being the Infinity War, like the good, dropping in the humor with the specific characters who that was their job and their personality was to throw in these little quips and stuff, to they went too far with like the Thor Love and Thunder-esque with Nimbus, where it's like, bro, you read the room, like this is not the time, Yeah, I think Nis was a fine character, but there are so many. Datto had a great, uh, I guess, topic on this when he's like, there are so many good characters in the Destiny universe that just get shelved on the sidelines and delegated to other things that could have really used the limelight instead of a new character, you know? So,
Yeah, yeah, with every expansion, this idea of introducing new character, I'm like, we don't need a new character every single like. I feel like Destiny at this point is almost, the Pokemon anime. Like we're good with Ash, Brock, and Misty. We're
yeah,
fine. Like just
give
keep
us,
recycling them. Let's get to know them. Let's see how they meet on these new challenges. Like yeah, this the group.
We have our Avengers team. We've got us. Zavala is just a grumpy old man at this point. He's useless. We got Mara. We got Eris. Right. We got the Drifter. We got Elsie.
Yo.
We've got our Avengers that we need.
Yeah, what's up with all these, these darkness folk? The Drifter and Eris. I'm like, what's their involvement now?
I am curious. I don't think Eris swapped sides. Which this gets into lore speculation theory. Like, I was very curious to see because lines have been drawn. We thought that this was going to be the Infinity War. I was curious to see who was going to swap sides. That was an expectation that I had. I thought we were going to get at least one person on our team to swap over. I thought that maybe after seeing the Witness how strong he is, that maybe the Drifter was going to swap sides.
Well, here's the thing. Well, speaking on that, like I would expect Crow to like go back, right? And I was disappointed by how that ended too, right? Like it was just like, oh, okay, like that's the way this whole Crow thing is gonna end. All right, we're moving on. So
I was fine with Crow, like having his redemption arc.
Yeah.
I was fine with that. The thing that I'm wanting, again, this is me wanting, I'm wanting him to go bad again. Like I want him to be that, that integral. And so I was thinking, I don't think it's going to happen this season because I think him, Amanda, and Mara are kind of leading the season. I haven't gotten into the seasonal content, but I think they're big players. But I want a long con of Crow going back. I think that'd be really true.
I would love to see that, but have him struggle like heavily with it. Like the idea of like, man, like, especially with the idea that was brought in Beyond Light that not all darkness is bad, right? Mm-hmm. It can be useful if it's used correctly, right? And so this idea of like Crow, like embracing the darkness in a way, almost very Darth Vader-ish, like, right? Like embracing this dark side a little bit more. And people started like, oh, shoot, like he might be falling back to older. And so now you got this whole witness traveler thing. You got the Strand stuff. You got, like,
which
it's beautiful, but you keep adding new characters. So we can't really like focus on this stuff.
Which they do an okay job of kind of putting it, pointing it home in Lightfall where it's not every. Just because there are things that use the light does not make them good, just like there are things that use the darkness do not make them bad. They're simply tools. Yes. But yeah, back to the Strand stuff. This stuff just pops up on Neomuna. Like just pops up randomly. Little Strand thing, like, hey, what's that? They never say why. They might put it in a lore thing later. We don't know why Strand is just on. So yeah, it's first impressions. I'm hoping, the classic meme of let it cook, let it land. I'm hoping, here at the end of the season, we're like, hey, some of this has been validated, justified. Final first impressions are I need to see where they're going.
This feels like classic Destiny where there's just like stuff going on and you got to go on the Grimoire cards to figure out like what it all is, except we don't even have that right now.
Yeah, if we even get that now.
Right.
Do you think it's one of those things where like as the seasonal stuff kind of goes through, you think it'll round things out hopefully?
I'm optimistic, but like Bungie has said that they are wanting their seasons to have their own specific and unique tones to them.
Yeah.
And varying. They don't want everything to feel like the same kind of blandy. They want one to be like horror, happiness, because we got the like horror themed one with like the nightmares and stuff with Eris, and then like almost immediately after that, it's like, hey, we're gonna be pirates, as the season's about to drop. Hey, yep, you go, pirates. And then we got a very serious Rasputin themed season, which was fun. I really enjoyed the Seraph season, but I like Rasputin as a character and Anna as a character. So as long as they have a singular theme, we can have different tones in each season. I'm fine with that because you need to mix up. But as long as we head towards final shape, which I think Joe Blackburn, who's the game director, he said that over the upcoming seasons for this year, we will learn more about the Witness, like his origins, and more about him and some of the plans, like why was the Veil. I don't know if they'll go into the Veil, but I'm hoping the correlation between the Traveler, Veil, and the Witness, I'm hoping will be explored more. To what
I imagine they're probably going to have, a book, with it, because David, now they have so within Destiny, it was Grimoire cards before. Like in the game, they've put in these very exhaustive like books inside the game that you can look at. Exhaustive, not like hundreds of encyclopedic pages, but altogether it's like hundreds of pages of stuff. But each one is like, you can read it in, 5-10 minutes, depending. But
gotcha.
So those give some really good details about certain things. So like I can imagine them dropping something on the Veil and be like, all right, this is the Veil. And then we can go back and to the campaign and piece some things together. But it's that sort of stuff that should just be in there from the beginning, like in the campaign.
I'm fine with giving hints about the Veil, because we didn't even get really any hints. We're just like, hey, this is important. Why? Because it's important. It's big. I'm hoping that gets saved for the either like a season dedicated to it, which I don't think something that big should be dedicated to a season, because not every player in Destiny buys the seasons.
Yep.
But if we can get like hints and a little bit and then save that for the final shape, I'm fine with that, letting it be revealed later.
Nope. They should, as soon as they started talking about the Veil, at some point shortly after, within the same hour, we needed information. Like as soon as they're running through the ship, right? Let's start a conversation about the Veil. Like, why is this thing so important? Like it's not like they haven't done that during previous campaigns. They did in the Witch Queen, they did in Forsaken. Something pops up, and then they start a conversation later about like, okay, like what is this thing? Like, why are we doing? Even if, like, I get stories as storytellers, you don't want to spell everything out and just make it all super obvious. Like, oh, but if they would have said something like, and again, I'm just using this as some wacky example, but if they would have been like, if they get, control of the Veil, they get control of the Traveler. And it's like, oh, frick. Like, what could that mean then if they get control of the Traveler? Like, it could mean several things, but we don't know. But it could mean so many different things. Your brain's like, oh my gosh, like we definitely don't want to let that happen. It adds tension. But it's just stakes. Like, oh, yeah, and stakes. So if they would have did something like that and left it, fine. I would have been great with that. But instead, it's just like, oh, they're going after the Veil. Vanguard's like, oh, we need to stop them. Apparently, everybody knows what the Veil is except the players.
Slight spoilers. Once we leave for Neo Muna, we don't talk to Zavala or any of them. So they don't even know. Like, like Osiris is being grumpy old man Osiris the entire time, and which he might be communicating with Zavala and like giving a check in, be like, hey, how's everything going?
Yeah.
But like we don't see it. We don't talk to, like, I feel like we should immediately, because she knows it, like Mara, we like, hey girl, like fill me in. Like, I know you know what the veil is. You're probably just hiding it from
Yeah.
us. Like you know more than all of us.
Yeah. Maybe
So-
maybe that's what the raid will be about. Just the veil.
Which
I don't know.
Which, that's kind of what I'm curious to see, because the veil looks or not the veil, but the raid. Like, they showed like the little intro of the raid, and it looks terrifying just from the visual. I have no idea where it takes place. It could very well take place in the veil.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see. There's a certain character that has been in the lore that's been very teased heavily. That if he's the raid boss, I think that's big, and that could explain a lot of the veil. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I get
Which
that.
I can't remember if the raid's this Saturday or next. I think I don't even know when the raid race is going to be, but I'll be
It's
watching.
usually 2 weeks after it drops, right?
It might be. Usually, letting people have time to enjoy the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Witch Queen was the second week for that exact reason. Like, they wanted to. Oh, in fact, it was because people were complaining. They're like, wait a minute, like, why are you pushing it back? It's like, we want to let people actually enjoy this time.
Enjoy
Right?
it. Yeah. Which,
so-
we'll see. We'll see if, more gets expanded on, if it's like an onion with the layers, but
Yeah, I still wish initially there was, you just put some stakes on it. Like, just give us something that draws us in, and it's like, oh frick, okay, we got a reason to do this. This is, you're not just telling me it's important, and it's important, but
yeah, more
like,
than
I
that.
get
Yeah,
why
give
it's
me
important. All right,
Go ahead, we've ranted. Yeah, we'll let it cook. That first impressions, let it land. Let it land.
So to Bungie's credit, David, you can tell, they've done a good enough job with the lore and the universe and stuff to invest people like us, and we could talk about it forever.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's interesting enough to where you can have these kind of conversations, whether it's, constructive criticism or whatever. Like, it's deep enough and interesting enough that this can happen. So, that's why I could go so long. All right, let's do some news. David, what you got?
For news, first big piece this week is that Forspoken's developer, Luminous Productions, also behind Final Fantasy 15, they are closing down. They are not necessarily just closing and leaving. They're actually being merged into Square Enix proper. And as of May the 1st, they will be completely merged in. They're still working on some fixes as well as DLC for Forspoken. So I would imagine if there's any other issues that it would essentially move on to being handled by Square Enix themselves as opposed to Luminous. So yeah, it's that's pretty big stuff. They didn't really give a reason beyond we're merging, and that's it.
So I think this is interesting. I'm not surprised.
No.
Luminous, I think part of the problem was the reason why Luminous Productions was creating games from a standalone, as a standalone developer in the first place. Their job was to make games in the Luminous engine, like to showcase the Luminous engine. Fine. That's not a good reason to make games, though. And so it's just not something that generates long-term benefit for you. You got to create games to make good games, not to showcase an engine. And if you look at Forspoken, it's a great showcase of the engine. It's not really that great of a game. And so because of that, it didn't do well, because that wasn't their focus. Their focus was, let's show off this engine. You can be great at making something beautiful and shiny. Doesn't necessarily mean like you're gonna nail all these games. Final Fantasy 15 was great, but that's because they were making a Final Fantasy 15 game. The focus was Final Fantasy 15, not showing off the Luminous engine. So then Square Enix is like, no, go on, do your thing. But the job is create games in the Luminous engine that show it off. I just think that's a dead end. That's a dead end reason to create games. You can do it. Not saying games are going to be bad, but it's not going to last because the creativity is not going to be there. Your thinking is somewhere else. It's not on how do we make a great game.
Yep.
In the Luminous engine while using the Luminous engine. It is let's showcase the Luminous engine and try to create a great game at the same time. I just don't see it working that way. So I'm not surprised by this.
Yeah, I'm not either. It was especially with Square Enix tends to also have a pretty high bar for what they consider a success. With a lot of their games, so it's not surprising.
Yep, sad stuff. In any case, at least consoles are still selling well. PlayStation recently revealed that they had sold 30 million consoles, and an analysis firm, I believe it's Ampere, I couldn't tell you exactly, but Piers Harding Rolls, he estimated that 18.5 million Xboxes were sold by the end of last year. Now, that is the Series X as well as the Series S. He did note that the level of demand, though, for the Series S during the holiday season, even with pricing promotion, suggests that it didn't have the high-end pull of its bigger brother. So as much as that extra console seemingly has helped them at the beginning, we're already starting to see that possibly slow down. So what are y'all's thoughts on all of that?
I mean, I've always been I sold these whenever they first came out. I always, the Series S is not a console for everyone, and I definitely don't think it should be a primary console if you are wanting a gaming system for Xbox. I think the Series X is much more superior in a lot of different ways. Not only power, but also price point. I think it's very justifiable to put the extra, money into that. So it's not surprising to see the Series S kind of slowly, kind of the gap widen, between the two. Because I talked more people out of buying the Series S than I did talking them into buying the Series X. So it was, yeah, I think the Series S is a good secondary console in household. Or if you only want a good media streaming unit. Other than that, just get the X. You'll be happier.
Yeah, I think I mean this pretty much happens with all multi-console version stuff. Switch Lite comes out and it's like, oh yeah, the Switch Lite is selling. Now it's not. So it's just not. Yeah, that's what happens when you have multiple consoles. I think Microsoft expected that. But I guess the question is, do people still want an Xbox at this point? So, this drops for the Series S because maybe all the people who want a Series S not all the people, but many people who want a Series S.
A lot of them.
Yeah, have bought the Series S. So now, are people just waiting to fork over some extra change for the Series X? I think we'll be able to figure out that sentiment once Starfield drops.
Yep.
I think once Starfield drops, because that should be able to play on the Series S. Yeah. It's the right. Yeah. I remember there was a story.
It'll be on the S. Everything. They require it actually for most games.
I was trying to remember. Just making sure. But yeah, so it being on both of those, I think that will be a really big indicator of who buys what, because if more people buy a Series S just to play Starfield, it's like, all right, then the CPU is really important for a game like that, and that's what the Series S has. It's the same CPU as the X. So if you're not really a big graphics person, I don't blame you for buying a 1080p 60 machine. I really don't. My PC is basically a 1080p 60 machine. I could pump it to 1440p, but I can't really like make it the most beautiful thing if I do that, right? So I get it. That's fine. That would be interesting to see how the sales go between the X and the S once a huge game like Starfield comes out. So,
yeah. The other thing that's interesting is it seems like the X, at least for a lot of the holiday season, was very hard to get.
yes.
In the sense that they're having trouble manufacturing it. So I'm very interested in what is going on with, obviously there's only so many people who are going to get chips. You're going to be standing in line, whether you like it or not, because cell phone manufacturers are there as well. You've got obviously other competition in PlayStation and Nintendo, and God only knows who else is out there. But I don't know. Did Sony manage to get a little bit more this time? Is it their turn? That's kind of the interesting thing. Yeah. But then Xbox may have not been buying as many because they're like, well, we don't have games. We don't have games.
Yeah, right.
We don't have games coming out. So why put our consoles out there? So which did result in one of their worst holidays that they've ever had. So
I mean, yeah,
it's just kind of all working together.
Different providers for the chips too. So maybe the provider for Xbox just didn't have as many. So
yeah.
Who knows?
All I know is this year will be very interesting because both consoles should, at least, I'm saying should because we have some great games that have already come out, but there's a lot that is still coming out and that we don't know what delays are going to happen. But I mean, you're talking some bangers coming out this year, so it's going to be very interesting to see how everything pulls itself together. I think we were just talking last podcast about how Sony and Jim Ryan, stupid smart to go ahead and ship hard to Europe with PlayStation 5s right when a certain game about magic came out because that just sold consoles.
Yeah.
So it'll be very...
We could see the same thing with Xbox and Starfield.
Yep. I expect if they do not ship a bunch of consoles when Starfield comes out, it's time to worry.
Well, I just wonder... the Game Pass is still like the thing, so but yes, that would seem to be the smart decision.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yep. Beyond that, the Olympics, I guess, are coming up, and there's an esports Olympics series now, except it's not exactly the esports you would imagine that it would be. Like when I think esports, I'm thinking like, okay, so we're getting Counter-Strike going, we're getting Val going, we're gonna have some League in here. We've got tic-tac-bow archery.
The frick is that?
I have no idea. I don't know how it feels like the Olympics went to like Bing and used the Chat GPT to figure this out.
No, dude, they use Jeeves.
Yeah. Bros on DuckDuckGo or whatever,
I forgot about Ask Jeeves.
Actually, no, they're just straight up using Internet Explorer. That's what it is. Internet Explorer thinks this is still what's going on. So
Yahoo.
Baseball, they're using WBSC Baseball Power Pros. They're doing chess from chess.com. I trust it. It's the official.com of chess. Cycling, they're using Swift with a Z. They are using something recognizable for dance and motorsport. We are getting Just Dance 2023. Is an Olympic event, Anthony, so get yourself ready. Just Dance is an Olympic event. Gran Turismo 7, which is about the only thing on this list that I'm like, okay, this actually kind of can belong here. Like, it's still odd, but it belongs more than most of these things. Sailing is virtual regatta. Taekwondo, virtual taekwondo.
Just pick Virtual Fighter. Just do that.
Like I'm just like, where's Street Fighters? I get that maybe Evo has the exclusivity or something, but come on, like there are, and tennis is tennis clash. Like this is what happens when you put someone in charge of the esports who doesn't know what esports is. Like this is, oh, okay, so what we're doing for the Olympics is virtual versions of what our people are already doing.
Yeah.
For the most part, beyond Gran Turismo or maybe the Just Dance, like those are the only things that are off even for that. But like, where's the Call of Duty tournaments? Where's Valorant, League? That is esports. Like, do the Olympics just not want to recognize these other games as esports? Or like, what is going on here?
So
ahead, Noah.
this is going the same, going on at the same time with the Olympics, correct? What if they're like, what if we show people something so bad they're gonna find the Olympics enjoyable?
I like the Olympics a lot. Okay, I watch
Well,
a lot of events.
that the person who put that, like, this is why they think the esports athlete or gamer, I think they're athletes, but the reason why people don't think the esports athletes are actual athletes is when they see stuff like this. Like, if this is going to represent at the Olympics, like, that's a miss. Like, so we're going to have, an all sports team of Just Dancers out there, like tagging it, like what?
I'm a phase Just Dance player.
Yeah, like, yeah, like I'm over here tic tac bow or whatever for the LA Thieves, like, or it just makes no sense. Yeah. Like, I don't know what they're, unless it's being self-aware, I don't know.
No, this strikes me as the meme of the "How do you do, fellow kids?"
Yeah, the boomer got put in charge. Yeah,
this is embarrassing. This is,
like I said,
flat
this
out.
is why this is why we get laughed at. Like, oh, you enjoy esports? Oh yeah, those.
This is what the kids are playing, and they're not playing Fortnite.
Or he only.
Like, why would you not have Fortnite here?
Like, the guy who's in charge only has the only console in their house is a Switch, so that's all he thinks is a console.
Bro, it's a Wii.
I don't even know if it's
being
probably a Virtual Boy.
Like, what? We've got all this running, all this insane hardware for these. I just can't.
No, this is embarrassment. First of all, no, this shouldn't even be part of the Olympics. They don't need it. They don't need it. They don't need video games in the Olympics. Look, League of Legends got their own leagues. It's doing fine. Counter-Strike got its league. It's doing fine. Rainbow Six Siege got its league. It's doing fine. Apex, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Overwatch, they're all doing fine with their own leagues. They don't need, if anything, at least have Overwatch. They got a World Cup event, god dang it. So, like, at least that matches. Yeah, this is just straight up embarrassing. That is this. I don't know who they're trying to capture, what audience they're trying to capture. The Olympics are fine, okay. If your ratings are bad for the Olympics, put the right events on. I don't know what to tell you. It happens every 4 years. Like, I don't watch swimming all the time. But when it's the Olympics, I watch swimming. I ran track. I don't watch it during unless it's the Olympics. I just don't have time. But yeah, I don't know what the point of this is. The only other reason I could think maybe that these games are not a part of the event, they couldn't get them, was maybe there's just some exclusivity licensing thing that is like, I forget what the League of Legends, leagues are called, but it's like only these leagues can broadcast League of Legends. Only these leagues could do, Counter Strike or
Makes
Katowice
sense.
and all the Valorant. Like these. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Other than the fact that they just really wanted to do video game versions of events in the Olympics, which is stupid.
Yeah, but you would think like the money making potential that they could get for the viewership. I don't know.
Nobody's gonna watch the esports Olympics.
I mean, like,
it's not gonna draw an extra viewership. I mean, maybe for the Olympic event.
Yeah, that's what I mean for the event. Like the Olympics would want those because of like league gets.
Do you know how much money they would have to pay? They ain't got money. They ain't got.
I don't know.
They over here built.
I'm trying to find ways in my head to make it make sense, and it's just
you can't make sense of it.
It doesn't.
No.
Something that didn't make sense to Sony, at least, is the FTC, which is requiring them to release a lot of information over to Xbox in some subpoenas. Now, not all of it happened. Like, I don't know if you saw the article a little while back, but they had apparently subpoenaed it and said, "We want your performance reviews."
Yeah.
I was like, how does that help you in this whole battle of getting Activision? Like, I don't get how performance reviews actually matters. But
I don't know what Tim's doing.
Yeah. So, but PlayStation is being required to actually show off their exclusivity on third-party deals contracts. And they're actually going to have to produce it from January 1st, 2019 to the present. So this is about to get really interesting because the question is what information is going to make it to the public, and how quickly should Sony be prepping a showcase to show off these games before they accidentally leak third-party video games that are coming out, because God knows that is probably going to it don't matter how many marks you make. Some judge is going to be like
the Sharpie.
Some judge is going to pick up and he's like, I see this notation on here about Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. What is this exclusivity? And what is a Metal Gear Solid?
Yeah. They're like
it's going to become this thing, and if anything can tell you anything, it's that anytime information is shared anywhere, somebody gets it and somebody's going to post it online.
Yep. So either they don't know better or they don't care.
Yep. So it's very interesting seeing some of these random things happen, which there's some good news for Xbox today. The EU sounds like they're moving in the direction to approving the deal after Microsoft has offered a lot of concessions, which pretty much at this point, they are having to eat a lot of concessions in this. Everybody keeps talking about 10-year deal. Well, that's not very long. In video game terms, that is a good long time.
That's a very long time.
Let's also remember, if you have a 10-year deal, there's almost no way that that doesn't end up getting renewed at the end. That you are actually more likely, in my opinion, to seeing that deal continue. So I still see Call of Duty in that Minecraft kind of thing, because I just do not see that Call of Duty's big enough to be that, it's going to be everywhere. What's going to be really interesting is seeing if any of these concessions push to more games than Call of Duty. If Microsoft starts pulling any Activision game. Now, they'll be very coy with it. They'll be any Activision game, not any Activision Blizzard game, so that they can keep some of these IPs. But I would not be surprised if they don't strike more of a deal in the sense that probably going forward, we're going to see a lot of these bigger names be Minecrafts, essentially. Overwatch, Call of Duty. Would not be surprised if they would like to keep Diablo, but they may push a little more on this one just because of the fact of, we've already got a ton of RPGs in our arsenal, so we're not exactly hurting, so we can enjoy the sales of Diablo 5 and 6 on PlayStation.
Yeah. Lose now to win later. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see how this goes, but we're getting somewhere. The question is what happens with the FTC and what happens with the CMA. I saw a very idiotic comment today saying that if Microsoft doesn't get the CMA's approval, they would just leave the UK and not sell consoles in the UK. And I laughed because that's a
Really
you don't
bad
just
business
leave them.
decision.
You just don't leave a market.
That's a interesting take.
Like I don't know that I've seen a dumber take. Well,
Just to
the
have this
person,
deal go through.
yeah, the person also said that Spider-Man 2 is 100% getting delayed this year after Insomniac have multiple times stated it's 2023. So
There you go.
Sheesh.
I suspect that 10 years is more than a console cycle. That is a console cycle plus some.
yep.
So by the time the next console is coming and is out, those deals may not have to be renewed from Microsoft's perspective for games. I can imagine an Overwatch or Diablo, probably more Diablo than Overwatch, becoming exclusive.
Now
Because
Diablo I can see, yes.
because it's a system seller. Overwatch probably not. But yeah, Call of Duty absolutely was still multi-plat. But I think things will just be so different in 10 years. I can't even imagine what the next consoles are going to be like in that time. Like these are really good consoles. To improve on this, like that is yeesh, okay. But Game Pass, who knows where that will be at that point? They're still going to sell consoles more than actually, who knows where Xbox will be in the console market at that point?
Yep, in
Like,
10 years.
could they pull out because Game Pass is doing so well? You know, I don't know. I guess not. No, because they would still want people to play on a platform that just has Game Pass on it. So, X that thought. Point being, my original thought is, what is going to be in that 10-year deal will be completely different by that, probably fourth year of the next console, at least. Because, it's just, you're going to want to sell some stuff. You're probably already planning the next console after that. So you're already thinking about if you opt into a new contract, that's another 10 years. You're already halfway in that cycle. Now you're thinking about another full console cycle where you have this deal where the games can be everywhere. You ain't got no system sellers, like except your Gears, your Forza, your Halos.
Yep.
Whatever. Who's the Perfect Dark developer? Whatever they're gonna do.
The Initiative.
The Initiative.
They'll still be working on Perfect Dark.
Yeah, probably. Whatever Playground games, Double Fine, all them, yes, it's a lot of studios and that could be a lot of exclusive games, but in 10 years, you're looking at maybe at least 3 games from one studio. Maybe. And with productions becoming longer and more expensive,
You're gonna be lucky to get 2.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if they would renew a 10-year deal, except for your Call of Duty, your Overwatch, those games
and that's where I'm at. Is I think
need.
Call of Duty's safe. Now, what'll be really interesting with Diablo is seeing how it is somewhat moving into the live service area from what they've said.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be probably the way that works will be interesting in seeing if that changes the possibilities of exclusivity. What is really interesting with all of this is how these deals that we've seen recently are changing the landscape of how acquisitions work. Because we're seeing so many of these different things with this deal with Activision that are not going, that Call of Duty will not be an exclusive. That is a guaranteed, at least. We don't know where things are 10 years from now, but I would be willing to guess this game it will be another Minecraft.
Yeah.
But not only that, you have PlayStation who bought Bungie for them to be multi-platform. Now, can we say that every single game that Bungie develops is going to be multi-platform? I would be willing to say there's going to be maybe a couple that probably come out of their pipeline that may be exclusive to PlayStation. For the most part, you're going to see multi-platform games, like whatever this new hero shooter is, guaranteed it's multi-platform. It's coming to everything. So it's just very interesting to see how these acquisitions are turning it's becoming different. I'm acquiring this, but it's still available in other places. You're still going to have plenty of Bethesda deals. You're going to have plenty of Insomniac deals that are going to be out there. But it's no longer a guaranteed that, because my favorite studio is bought, that it's going to only be on this platform. It's an interesting market that we are living in right now when it comes to video games.
Yeah, it's only for those specific games. Call of Duty, even if it wasn't live service, it's still going to be multi-plat because that's just what it is.
Well, you're pushing for crossplay, so if you don't have the whole entire base,
I can't imagine, I just can't imagine anything else besides Minecraft and Call of Duty and Overwatch being,
and now Destiny too, Destiny at this point, because it's going to be. I guarantee you, Destiny will always be multi-platform.
Oh yeah, they're too big to be exclusive, I think.
Well, there's more money for Microsoft. You still got they still get those residuals off of being multi-plat. So that is an advantage. Phil Spencer said that. I think that it would be worse for them to not keep Call of Duty multi-plat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It'll just be very interesting to see how these concessions and different things continue to be worded and what things are non-negotiables as we continue through this.
Well, I don't think that once the deals are done, you have to maintain the deals in order to keep the company. I don't think that's the case. So I think Microsoft just wants them, and then once they get them, you can ease off the gas a little bit. It's like when you're chasing your girl, for, trying to marry her. You're doing everything right. You saying all the right things. You taking her out to the right places. You doing all that stuff, and then once you get her, it's like, all right, relax a little bit. Yeah. You still try to woo her, but it ain't as strong. Let's be real. So I feel like that's the same way with Microsoft.
Yeah, all we know is Call of Duty is going to be around and on every device for a very long time, and most likely will not change.
Yep.
And that is it for news today.
All right, and that is it for the podcast because it's late. So
time to go bed.
Appreciate you boys staying up for this one. Appreciate y'all watching and listening. We will talk to you later.
Peace.
Bye.